Hello friends, it's Caroline Mary, host of Ascension TV Online. Hello and welcome to this episode 3. So I am today talking about the book that is about to be released, Who Called You Crazy? You're Having a Spiritual Awakening. And I wrote the main body of this work in 2017 while I was living in Portugal, in a beautiful place near the Serra da Estrela. And I was sat every day in the sunshine looking up at the mountain and purging my soul and what I wanted to tell the world. And the subject is, as it says, how you might be feeling when you're having a spiritual awakening. And in my 20s, I had two profound phases of awakening, and in I think 2006 and 2007, and both of those times were really amazing for me internally. I was having psychic senses coming online, I was having downloads of information. It just felt like I was coming home. It was so incredible. And yet for those around me, I was different. I wasn't the Caroline they were used to. I wasn't the compliant, people-pleasing self, and they were worried and they locked me in a psychiatric hospital. And once I was in that system, the first time I felt really disempowered. And I continued taking the medication even though I'd left hospital, and I was really unhappy. It felt like my whole world had just come crashing down. And during the second time in the hospital, I realised that I had a choice and I didn't have to take the narrative they were giving me, and I ceased taking the medication. I had the support of a partner who really understood. Like a lot of people that have laughed, saying it's only by the luck of God that they didn't get locked up themselves, because when you're an awakened person, when you're like Neo, right, in the Matrix, and you see beyond the here and now in the Matrix that we're like expected to live within, you do seem crazy because you speak another language. You speak about ideas that only have been spoken about in books or in other times. And what was happening to me is the reality around me just wasn't ready for the truth bombs that I was dropping, and the realities clashed, and that was it. I got locked up. But the second time, because I realised I didn't actually have to follow the narrative, I didn't have to do what my parents wanted me to do, I unplugged from the system, and I got support from, I had two amazing support workers that could see that I had self-awareness and self-reflection about what was happening to me, and they helped me receive financial benefits for a while so I could integrate everything that had happened. And I retrained to be an accounts assistant. So rather than having a job that was a beautiful job, I worked in a college as a support assistant, but it didn't support me financially. I literally could barely afford to live. I retrained. I had a stable income because I had DLA for a while, and I was able to take a new job, and that was really satisfying because on one level it's helped me do what I do today, because obviously I knew how to run business accounts, which I didn't really understand before that, and it was very stabilizing. So I was able to just integrate everything that happened and look normal, so people around me were like, okay, Caroline's okay again. But inside, my heart was eating. Like, I felt like I was, my soul was being eaten up, because I had to just put on this mask of normal and shut down everything that I'd experienced, because people around me just didn't have that psychic awareness themselves. Anyway, those experiences stayed with me. They were so profound. It was incredibly traumatic, even though in the second experience I kind of understood the system a little better, so I could kind of receive what I wanted and get out of it quicker. It was harrowing, and it took me years to have the courage to speak my truth in front of people. And eventually I found a lot of spiritual people. I went away traveling with an ex-partner of mine, and when I came back, I just didn't go back to the area that I lived, because nobody around there really had the spiritual and psychic insight to support that part of me that had come through in my awakening. Anyway, so when I went back to Portugal a few years later on my own, I stayed with people who were very spiritually awake and aware and welcome, and they understood some of that I'd been through. I was able to start processing everything, and that's when the first iteration of a book came out of me, and it just literally poured out. So if you've ever heard anyone talking about songwriting, and I have written songs, and it is exactly the same, you suddenly feel like you've got to do something, and it just lands. sessions, and this happened over a series of a month. So I will say to you as an aside, if you've ever thought about writing a book and you've got something there knocking at your door, take the time, okay? Set aside an hour a day, set your writing desk up and just get it out of your system. And I guarantee you it won't take that long. What can take long is the inner process. So I wrote that first iteration in 2017. I then found a publisher who is also the illustrator, Vicky Heath, an incredibly spiritually, profoundly awake and aware teacher and healer, and she channels people, about people's past lives and everything like this. So she really understood the content of the book, and also what I was asking when I illustrated it. So when I wrote my book, I was getting a page of writing and a picture, because I have very clear inner sight, okay? So my clairvoyance is very active, and when I write, I often get shown pictures that match what I'm saying. So the pictures that she's illustrated in this book, so it's not fully illustrated, it's not like a children's book, but there are pictures throughout the book that summarize what I'm writing about. So for example, one of the themes that I'm sharing is that when we're awakening, we start connecting to our soul, and when we connect to our soul, we then connect to our Akashic records, which essentially is the whole of our memory. So for me, it's not anything new to think about past lives. I've had past life flashes all my life, and it comes to me when I'm doing something that feels familiar, or I'm thinking about a place on earth that feels familiar, and I'm just like, God, I've got a feeling I know that place. I've had it about Australia, South America, like North America. I've had it about China, not so much Russia. I've had it about Mongolia, Tibet, India, absolutely, Africa, absolutely. And I've just had this feeling. I've walked many, many lives on earth, and so many of us have as well, but not everyone has accessed them. So when I wrote that first iteration, it wasn't a challenge to research. It just was like, this is what I want people to know. Because when I got sectioned, I was so freaking angry. I was just absolute tamping. But if I had kicked off, and I was very animated, because I was being locked up, and to me, being treated like a criminal and treated like you had no self-awareness. And to me, I did have awareness. I knew what was going on. My energies were up. I was purging old stuff, so a lot of trauma stuff coming to the surface, but I was having downloads. I understood it, but I didn't have the language, and because I was presenting differently and I was angry, that was getting a kickback. And I could see really quickly, I just had to keep stum, okay? Keep it all in and get out. Otherwise, you would be in this cycle, you'd be held down, you'd be jabbed, and it's so freaking traumatic, okay? It was enough that I was forcibly injected once. I wasn't going to do it again, and I had enough savvy to just zip it, basically. But the book, so when I came to finally write the book, it just went, because I knew what I wanted to say. I knew what I believed. I knew I was having an awakening, and it made sense in spirit, in psychic terms. It made sense. I wasn't fully psychic before, although in some ways I had claircognizance and clairvoyance very strongly, but I didn't have the language, and it wasn't as profound, it wasn't upon me in such a profound way that it then obviously brought people to be concerned for me. But what I understand now is that with the book, I just wanted to share the world, like, you need to know this. And the book that is coming out in a few weeks' time, Who Called You Crazy, is that book plus another book that I'd written. So in the interim of being sectioned, realizing that I really wanted to start sharing things about this, and this final book, I had a phase where I was blogging, and I was doing a lot of writing, and I was doing a lot of video blogging under the heading of breaking out bipolar. Now, my wish is that I can help people who are in the old paradigm, thinking like, this isn't quite what I believe, but I'm being told this, and I'm on medication, I'm going in out of hospital, and say, look, there's another way. Like, if you integrate your soul and your ego, okay, if you integrate the energies that are coming to us like almost daily, we're having solar storms, and when that happens, we're getting like a deluge of energy, which is like a healing energy, and it's bringing up our subconscious, and it's integrating wisdom that we're accessing, and it can be really challenging and tumultuous, but because I understood it, and there was no way I was going to follow this, you're bipolar and da, 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 da. I was starting to share, okay? And for a few years, I was sharing a lot and people were feeding back and saying the videos were helping. But I also knew I had nothing to give. I wasn't a trained coach back then. I wasn't a trained healer. I didn't have anything to offer. I had no book. So people were saying, can I work with you? And I'm like, well, you can chat with me, but I don't have a process that I can help you. And now I've trained as a life coach. I've trained with an amazing guy, Christian Michelson, he's an American guy, and he's fantastic. He doesn't just work with awakening, right? His coaching method is really essentially a healing method, and you can apply it to anything. And I have used that method again and again and again to heal so much of my ego, my soul parts, the traumatized parts in me, so that I've integrated the energies that were coming to me in those times of awakening. And so when I've experienced solar storms in the last few years, I can feel that my energy is heightened and there's expansion happening. I'm getting that energy, I'm getting the downloads of information and inspirations, but I know what to do with them now. I write them down. I've got journals, I've got books for, I've got my computer with different ideas, future projects, different book ideas, and I just jot down everything that I'm receiving and I shelve it and I carry on with what I'm doing in the day to day. So when you don't understand that, you are accessing higher wisdom and understandings. You can be accessing your psychic senses and have had no idea that was even a thing, and it can be really profoundly scary. I really do understand that, but because of the mindset and the spiritual understandings I had, for me, it didn't feel scary. I was just like, oh, this is like coming home. This is just wonderful. I'm having real life experiences that actually mean something to me. And the book, Who Called You Crazy, is an offering to you who might have watched somebody going through awakening and might have looked in an altered state. And I use that word quite a lot in the book, like altered states of consciousness, because to me, rather than it just being, oh, you're just off your head, you could say in theory, you're out of your head. You're in an expanded state. You're accessing a higher bandwidth of reality, okay? And some people would argue the toss and say, oh, it's all bollocks. You're just literally having hallucinations. But then let me ask you this. Why do dogs hear things that we can't hear? Are they hallucinating? No. Science proves that there are parts of the spectrum of sound that we don't pick up. But just because we don't hear it doesn't mean the dog doesn't. And it's the same with our psychic awareness. So just because you don't see angels or guides doesn't mean that I don't see them all the time. No way. I don't claim to, but I do understand that they're there. I have signs, like I get feathers, I get repeating numbers, my kettle clicks when I'm thinking something profound. So I did another recording of this video, and something in me knew like it's not quite right, and my kettle clicked. It was like, yeah, spirit's going, no, it's not quite right, record it again, okay? Because I want this to be right for you, not just for me. It's all, I can ramble to my heart's content, but I want you, as somebody that might be awakening, that somebody that might be having a spiritual experience, a mystical experience, having psychic awakenings, to realize you're not alone, okay? It doesn't have to be scary. There are absolutely clear ways that you can help yourself. And in the book, Who Called You Crazy, I write some of the steps that I took that helped me anchor the energies that were coming, stabilize the parts of my life that I needed to. So eventually I was able to do my own healing process, okay, which I think is step 7 in my in chapter 7 of the integration chapter, and chapter 8 is looking at your spiritual choices, okay? So I'll come to that in a minute. What I wanted to say is just, if you've looked around on YouTube, you will find me in another iteration. I've got short hair and I'm doing a lot of blogging on the breaking out of bipolar, okay? Because in that period of my life, I was basically too scared to say I was having a spiritual awakening. I don't need to use that word. I knew it in my heart, but I did not know how to reach the people I wanted to reach. So I was calling this whole body of work Breaking Out of Bipolar, and I had written, more or less finished writing, a book called Breaking Out of Bipolar, which was going to be a coaching kind of step-by-step self-help book to help anybody transition from the mental health paradigm, which says you're ill, you're going to be ill for the rest of your life, this is not something you can control. This is a hereditary thing. You've got to stay on medication, which I was like, I don't accept that. I've never accepted that things are unhealable. I always have sought the holistic alternative, and I haven't had to for a lot of times. Because I do yoga, I eat well, I do breath work, and I feel pretty healthy, right? So I don't have to use medication. I'm very blessed. But is it blessed, or is it because I make wise life choices? Who knows? But the point I would like to give to you is, and through the Breaking Out Bipolar, I wanted to say you can be here in the narrative, but you can start choosing your own narrative. You can create your own life. You can take the steps that help you become free if you want to. Now, I do know people that are really happy to say, I'm bipolar and I need meds for the rest of my life. I wasn't okay with that. I'm sorry, I wasn't. And I'm not saying for a minute that anyone should go out and just drop their medication, sack off their support system and walk their own path, if you are not prepared to take on the responsibility of your full well-being. And that's not just physical health, that's not just mental health, that is emotional and spiritual. And to me, that is what is missing in the mental health paradigm. They say it's mental health, it's not, it's full holistic health. If you had abuse or trauma as a child and you don't deal with it, you're going to have CPTSD symptoms, you're going to have flashbacks, you're going to start feeling really weird if you try and break out of your comfort zone, okay? And I've experienced that again and again and again, and in the coaching world, you will hear people talk about growth edges. So when we hit a growth edge, we are hitting an edge of, this is what I believe I am and can do, and this is what I want to do. And if that thing is outside your comfort zone, you're going to hit up a lot of your ego, and that's normal. That is growth. That is our soul growth, and that is happening to everybody right now because we are being invited to step up into the fullness of our true divine potential. Okay, so coming back to the books, I just want to clarify, and this is something that really is important to me, that if you see the videos where I'm talking about breaking out bipolar and saying I was bipolar, have a moment of compassion for me, okay? It's easy to shoot me down and say, you said you were bipolar then and now you're pretending you weren't, blah, 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 blah. It's semantics, because back then I was too scared to just say I was having a spiritual awakening. Back the fuck off, okay? I didn't accept that label. I never said, thank you very much, I'll have the medication, I'm going to be ill forever. What I did do is I am going to never be sectioned again, and I will integrate this in my own way, which I did. But when it came to helping people, I really wanted to. I want to reach people. I want to reach people that are not completely happy with a limited prognosis in their life and want another way to live. Okay, and that really is what this book is. That when I started writing that book, and I'll get to the point in a minute. When I started writing, I was nearly finished, the Breaking Out Bipolar, I had a vision. I was meditating, I was doing my yoga in the morning, and I had a vision of a guide. And I knew it's a guide called Kutumi, Lord Kutumi, and he is an ascended master. He's from India. He lived in India in one of his lives. Go look him up, okay? He's an amazing, amazing guy. And quite quickly, I had the inspiration to look up somebody that channels him, a lady called Lynette from Australia, and I can't think of a second name. Otherwise, I'll pop a link, right? I'll pop her link in the comments below. But basically, I looked her up. I got a session with her, a channel session, and she said, Kutumi's in my ear saying, you've got to rip up that book. And the reason now I understand years later, even though I'd built a whole a business model that I was going to help people and use this label, it was really limiting for me, because I don't want to talk about that word. The fact of even saying that word now, I'm just like, bleh, it's like McDonald's to me. It's like old, part of the old world. And I want to invite people to look at things in a new way. Look at the symptoms you're going through as unique as scenarios, and look at what's actually happening, okay? So for me, yes, it looks like I'm having a high and low, and the old way of saying that is manic depressive. But if you look underneath that, what is happening? My soul was screaming to get out, okay? Our schools are like straitjackets for our creativity. It hammers out your individuality. It hammers out your inspiration, indoctrinates you into this conformist energy so you can be a good little worker. And I wasn't okay with that. Like many hippies, and free thinking people, no, I wasn't going to live that. I didn't know how to change it. I didn't have the words to explain that. But I had dreadlocks for like 8, 10 years. I didn't cut my hair from when I was 13 until I was actually, I think I shaved my head or cut my hair when I was in around hospital in the second time, I think, because I needed to cleanse that whole time of thing. But I've often chosen things from my soul, not from conforming to the culture around me. Okay, and that's obviously led because I've accessed my past lives, I've accessed my soul wisdom. Hasn't always been an easy journey, I kid you not, but it gave me that wisdom. So but when Katumi said I needed to rip up that book, I was in this like, well, where do I go from here? Had written this first book and I was writing this other one, Breaking Up Bipolar, as a kind of self-help, how you integrate your spiritual awakening. But the language was wrong, okay? So Who Called You Crazy You're Having a Spiritual Awakening draws on that first book that came out in a month, and this other book, which was more self-help. So in Who Called You Crazy You're Having a Spiritual Awakening, it doesn't go massively into my journey. That's what these videos are for, and also the blog on my website, and you can find blogs about the different phases of my experience there, and you can also ask questions as well. I'm happy to answer them. But what it does do is break down the process that I went through. Okay, so chapter 1 is reframing your story, choosing a new narrative, which I did. And when I started my first, like my writing journey, if you like, in about 2015, the first book I was going to write is The Rise of the Shaman, because in 2014 I met a shaman and I realized that everything that I was experiencing in my old states was like being in a shamanic ceremony. Okay, so if you know anything about shamanic ceremonies, you open a sacred space and you go into like a non-ordinary reality. Other people would call this astral traveling. You can do shamanic journeys. You go into like a dream state and you're receiving wisdom and you're talking to guides. It's what people who are mediums do. They talk to spirits, right? They talk to our ancestors. And I was having that, but I hadn't chosen a clear parameter. And that's why my family got involved. And obviously they worried, blah, blah, blah. So the first chapter, though, is all about choosing your own narrative. So in that, I offer alternative narratives, and to me, all of them are slightly relevant. Okay, integrating your soul and your ego, having a Kundalini awakening, accessing your core wounds. You get to choose. Okay, and this is the point. I didn't choose to be called bipolar. I used it for a while as a label to reach the people I wanted to reach, but it just didn't sit right. Even saying it, I'm like, here I can just feel the contraction, because there is a lot of weight behind that word, the diagnosis, and that whole system. If it works for you, brilliant, and I wish you all the best. For me, I wasn't going to sit with that. I'm sorry, I just wasn't going to do it. And as I said, don't take my word for it. Please don't just stop medication. Go find your support network, and if you're going to do that, do it with wisdom and be awake, and tell the people around you what you're doing, and be mindful, because if you just rip off a plaster, we know blood can squirt, right? Shit can go wrong. You have to be able to hold that space for yourself, and it has been challenging. But because I had prior soul-led wisdom, if you like, I had some grounding into this is what was happening. I didn't know really how I was going to integrate it and what that would look like, but I did have that choice, and that was up to me. But I'm absolutely not telling you to go follow that. Okay, my friends, I just want to let you know. But the book is certainly an invitation to look at things in a different way. So it's for you if you've been through the mental health system and you didn't really quite agree with it, if you've had a spiritual awakening and you're feeling a bit funky, or you're an onlooker or you're a mental health worker, okay? Because all of you will have an opinion that might be informed by the culture but not your soul, and you might be feeling a bit of a clash between, well, I think this but people are telling me this. I'm just saying this is my opinion, take it or leave it, okay? But Chapter 2 is sharing the reasons that I think we go through these profound awakenings and these Kundalini awakenings. Firstly, it's because your soul is saying you to wake the heck up. You might hear it, okay, that the universe tickles, slaps and punches, okay? If you're meant to be over here and you're like doing over here, at a certain point, if you're aware and you're kind of letting your spiritual awareness in, and you kind of do want guidance, you'll be getting signs from your guides all the time, calling you to a path that is more aligned, which is why my coaching offerings are one of the strands is Ascension Alignment Coaching, because we are getting into alignment. And when you're in alignment, you feel good. You don't have to lie. You just live your truth. Okay. And so many of us have been crumpled and contracted. And now is the time of expansion, and it can be messy. So in chapter 2, I'm talking about things that can be spurring on those changes in your life. Okay, so one of them is like if you smoke marijuana, which I did in my 20s, from 16 to 26, 27. And yeah, you could say it was just marijuana psychosis. Again, I knew differently. Yes, it might have activated me being more awake, and it certainly didn't help me spend time integrating, because I just smoked continuously. But it wasn't the only factor, but it was a factor. Sleep loss, that was another factor. Sexual intimacy, massive factor, because it's obviously an energetic interaction. And trauma, healing. What else do I mention in there? Solar storms, okay, solar flares. When we have a solar flare and the Schumann resonance of the Earth's magnetic field rises, we feel it. If you're sensitive, you will feel it. You'll feel wired. You won't be able to sit still. You'll be having loads of ideas going on. You're having your mind like racing, which is, again, if you speak in mental health language, that's a manic episode. If you look at it in terms of energy and knowing that we are an energy system, it makes sense. If there's a deluge of energy, you need to ground it. And if you've had trauma, you're not going to be finding it easy to ground. Your root chakras are going to be clenched. Okay, when trauma happens, we kind of clench, and that energy can't easily pass through our system. Okay, so chapter 2 is just sharing with you some ideas of what might have created the perfect recipe, if you like, for a Kundalini awakening. All right. Chapter 3 is why me, why now? Why did I have to go through this? Well, I'm sorry, Buster. We are in the greatest times of the world. We are ascending as a collective. Whether people know it or not, whether they like the language or not, whether they think they chose it or not, tough shit, guys. We chose pre-life. We came into this reality, this shared reality, and we are shifting the narrative on Earth in every field. You know it. It's why the world, people are saying the world has got crazy. It was already crazy, guys, unless you didn't realise. Hello, there are people telling us what to do all the time, and rules, and people ripping people. It's horrible. And I saw it as a kid. I was like, this is hell. But we are here to change it. And in order to change it, we have to live in alignment. We have to have the courage to speak our truth, which is what I'm doing through this TV channel. And we have to walk, we have to walk the walk, right? And so for me, writing this book is me also saying, all right, this is what I believe. I'm sorry if you don't agree with it. I completely understand. That's fine. But this is what I believe. And this is what my offering is to anybody that is like, maybe there's a thread of truth. There's something else out there and I don't know what it is. Well, read it and you might have an idea. But the timing doesn't always feel good. It can feel really challenging to people. You might feel like you just need to be on your own for a while. There's so much. And, if you want to find out more about spiritual awakening, go ahead and look, just Google it, because there's so many people. 20 years ago, or nearly 20 years ago, when I was going through it, I wasn't even on the internet half the time, let alone looking and seeing and realizing there were so many other people going through similar things. Okay, now I realize this is nothing new. Like, nothing in the book is new. It's just a collection of what I needed to say, okay, for me to process it, but also for you who it might be helping. Okay, chapter 4 is all about before, during, and after. All right, so I was using in the video that I did, the version before, I use the analogy of baking a cake. All right, your kitchen's perfect and clean. You start making a cake and your kitchen is a shit show. It's a complete mess. You got bloody cake batter flying here, there and everywhere. You got all your ingredients out. It's chaos. And then you put it in the oven, you clear the decks, you get the cake out, you might ice it, and suddenly you've got this beautiful result. Same analogy for a butterfly. Yeah, you got a wiggly little caterpillar, cocoon, yeah, what's going on, and then a butterfly. But in that cocoon, that caterpillar, it just turns to mush. It's gross, it's crazy. Yeah, if you looked in it, you'd be like, oh, I don't want to see that. But a butterfly comes out, okay? When we're going through a spiritual awakening, it's like that. It can be a shit show. And unfortunately, if you don't have the support and people around you who can help, you can be really getting a lot of knockback from the people around you. And my sense is, depending on how far away you've been living from your truth, how much karma you've got to integrate, how much of those choices you've been making. There's a lot of factors in it, so don't take my word for it, but it depends whether you're going to have a bumpy awakening and a very profound Kundalini awakening, or you're going to have like a more gentle, different stages happening. Okay. And I follow somebody called Ellen, and she talks about profound, she had like 5 Kundalini awakening phases, and they're like upgrades to our energy. So it's like the caterpillar becomes the butterfly, and then it becomes something else. And in each phase, it seems normal and there's integration, but then when you up level, there's this period of chaos. Okay, so chapter 4 is all about that. So I use the chakras to look at different parts. So for example, in your root chakra, before, you might not feel safe, you might be kind of depressed, you might live in a very small comfort world, you might not really like your home, you might live in quite mess, you might have clutter, you might have a certain diet, you might like have a certain wardrobe. And as you awaken in the phase of like what might seem like chaos, you might get access to loads of different influences from different parts, like different lives, from different cultures. You might feel really inspired to make loads of changes. You might get really creative. You might want to move home. You might want to change your wardrobe because you're like, shit, none of this makes sense anymore, because the new self, it's like, this doesn't, I've got old shoes, I don't want them anymore, right? That's a metaphor, right? It's like this way of living, it doesn't suit me anymore. And I got very fixated on my kind of persona as a hippie. I had all the clothes that matched, and I used to make clothes, I used to do poi and this and this and this, but it meant that I could never have imagined running a business and doing something like this. My worlds were too compartmentalized. Obviously people talk and they wear their dreads and they're these beautiful goddesses with dreadlocks, but for me, I almost had to, I ended up, and you'll read about it in the book, in one iteration of life choices. It wasn't a profound Kundalini awakening, but I literally got rid of everything because I was so stuck in that way of being. I couldn't imagine if I was doing this, I couldn't do this. If I did that, I couldn't do that. And really, our soul wants freedom. So we will literally be losing anything that is contracting us and keeping us stuck in a way that is the caterpillar, not the butterfly life. Okay, and that happens in every aspect of our life. You might change friendships, you're going to change hobbies, you might change the work that you want to do. Not always, because it might be that you are journeying with the people you're around, but for me it was so different. I was connecting to things that were so different from the people I just had to leave it. And it doesn't mean I didn't like this, but I've loved every person I meet. I'm in awe at all people I meet. I've had the self-opinion that I'm just some kind of idiot, right? And I look at people, I'm just like, wow, but I still couldn't always speak my truth, and I had to just follow that path so that I could get to a point where I'm actually like, I feel normal. I feel like me being me is okay, acceptable, allowed, easy, comfortable. And part of that's right in the book, and saying this is what happened to me and I want to share it with people in case it helps somebody. So chapter 5, I've missed a chapter. It doesn't really matter. The point is, if you're interested in anything I've said, then you're going to carry on reading it, aren't you? But let me just think through my mind. I know chapter 6 is why you need to integrate your spiritual awakening. Because for a long time, I stayed with this, I've had an awakening, I'm okay, fuck you all, I'm pissed off with the world, and this is how I'm going to live, But really, okay, I didn't really know how to translate that into still having a life, and also not just having a life, because I had a really fulfilling life in some ways, socialising and going to festivals and a bit of travel and stuff, but I wasn't satisfied in terms of what I was doing for a job. I never found the job, and as growing up I was looking at the world going, I don't know. I can understand how I could do all these jobs, I'm fairly intelligent, but I didn't want to do the jobs. I didn't know how I could be me and get paid for it and feel comfortable and fulfilled and not like I was selling my soul, okay? So, but I got stuck, and that's because that was a protective part of me, okay? Rather than judging any of these aspects, it's all about bringing massive compassion. And for me, the reality was I was stuck because I was so afraid of admitting my frailties, my vulnerabilities. It was terrifying. I was afraid of my parents. I was really, I've just got a diagnosis of autism, and that was through a guided message from our guides through a guy called Ben Zachary Shaw. He's an amazing channel. Go check him out, and he's written a review in the book. But to me, the trauma that I had as a kid, which was nothing major, but maybe lots of little things that ended up making me feel very contracted. When I then started getting out in the world, when I was in university, I was like bursting open. It's like, oh my God, this, oh my God, this, oh my God, this, and it was quite hard to integrate it. And I clung to my spiritual beliefs because that was my constant, that was the safety that I had. I did not trust people. I had walls up. I would let them down, but I really was quite guarded because I felt really vulnerable in speaking about my real truth, and also that it wasn't helped when I was sectioned, right? So when we're awakening, we do have to integrate it so that we can come back into, if you like, out of the like a non-ordinary state, out of an old state back into an ordinary state. So we're grounded, we can function, we can live in this physical reality and connect to people again. And I guess one of the things that has taken me quite a long time to integrate is realizing that I love being in an old state. I don't want to come back. But of course, you're going to struggle if you're in a different wavelength constantly and not able to kind of come back into a shared way of being. Okay. And, having journeyed with shamans in an ayahuasca ceremony, and now being a teacher and a facilitator of the Munaki, somebody that passes them on, I really understand the importance of those boundaries. So you open up a safe space, you can go into that old state, get your messages, do your journey, and come back out of it and ground. Okay, so over the next few months, I will be sharing resources around different elements and different activities that you can do to help you integrate, and that's what chapter 7 is about. So 6 is about why you need to integrate, and chapter 7 is how, these are things that I did to integrate my enormous life-changing spiritual awakenings that led me to getting sectioned. And in that, some of the steps are simple, like allowing yourself to have financial support. So I had the DLA and I had ESA for a while, and I have a version of Universal Credit at the moment. And that supports me to integrate the different aspects of myself, do that journey work, and build a fulfilling life that suits me and my sensitivities and my particular skills and gifts, rather than having to get a job which does not feel comfortable. So if I will talk other times about what I believe about autism and hypersensitivity and being a super sensitive person, and the challenges, pros and cons of that. But like right now, my skills and gifts I use in the writing, and I use in creating events, but also doing healings and things like Munaki. And it does take a while to transition your mind, your body, your lifestyle from one where you're working for somebody and that structure is just given to you and you don't have to take any responsibility, to being in your full capacity and running a business, and actually what that means, because every day you're the creator, you're the director, you're the work person, you're the accountant, you have to do everything until you obviously can afford to pay people. And that has got, it's challenging, it's fulfilling, but it's challenging. Okay, so if you need that support, get the support, get the help, sort your diet out, sort your exercise out, sort your home out, sort the things out. Allow yourself time to make the changes. Don't try and do it all at once, which I have done, and it doesn't work. You don't change because our neural pathways have to catch up with the changes we're making, which is why people say it takes 21 days to anchor a new habit, because you're building a neural pathway and then something becomes normal. Doing these videos, they're going to become normal for me. It's just going to feel really easy. Every week on a certain day, I make a new video. Okay, a few weeks ago, that was like, I couldn't be doing that. We were in retrograde and I kind of felt like it wasn't the time. But yeah, when you want to do something new in your life, unfortunately, when we have these deluge of energy in a solar storm that can really create a strong Kundalini awakening, or you might do an activity, it might be through sex or yoga, you still need to download and let that integrate through every part of your system. So one of the things I also recommend is writing down the ideas. You might not do them all, okay? A lot of the things that I'm doing now, I saw years ago. I get given names and it takes a while for the physical reality to catch up. I have to put systems in place, I have to do the writing or whatever it is, and that's the same for you. You know, you might have a vision of a project and then you start thinking, oh God, I haven't done it, and I've had this, right? Not realizing that just because you have a vision doesn't mean it's happening tomorrow. The time lag is the reality, is how much you get in alignment, etc., etc. But it takes time. It takes, you know, we are in a place of time. You know, you can have instant manifestation, but if you're not aligned and you're not ready, you won't have it, because you won't be able to enjoy it anyway, and you might have something else you're meant to do. Okay, so anyway, that's chapter 7, and chapter 8 is moving on. Okay, so once you've awakened and realised there's a whole lot more to the, you know, the world, you're going to maybe find new friends, you're going to find new activities, you're going to start realising that, yeah, angels and dragons and unicorns are real beings. They just happen to be in the other realms where not everyone sees them yet, but it doesn't mean it's not a time that's coming. Okay, you're going to start feeling rather than thinking. You're going to go on your intuition. You're going to be living from your soul, not your ego. You might have a personality change. You might even want to change your name. A lot of spiritual people change their names. They get given a name from their spiritual master. Sorry, there was a little bit of sarcasm there. Sorry, that I don't mean that disrespectfully. What is that about? That's because I haven't been given a name. So something you'll get to know about me is I do something called real-time trigger analysis, right? So if I can feel that sarcasm that came through and that little bit of like icky energy, it's like, hang on a minute, what is that about? Okay, there are people with such beautiful names, and part of me really wants one. So if you're that person, bring me my soul name. But until then, I'm Caroline Mary, and Mary is my true middle name. Okay, years ago when I was a kid, I couldn't even say my whole name, let alone say the Caroline Mary. Okay, again, the connotations of the Christianity. When I was growing up, it wasn't cool to be Christian. It's like, oh, they're the happy clappers, let's take the piss. I joined in, okay, but I knew Jesus. I believed in Jesus. I'm so embarrassed, literally, I'm so embarrassed. But this is what we do when we want to join in. We want peer support. We want to join in and we want to be normal. We just cover our shit up, and people call that betraying yourself now. We lie, we put masks on. I used to do that all over the place, wore different clothes. Oh, I'm part of this group, I better be like that. No one was asking it of me. That was my internal belief that if I didn't do this, then I wouldn't be safe, because we're tribal beings. It's all part of the root chakra. We want to join in. We want to find our place. So a lot of times I have twisted myself into a version of somebody that is safe, because we want to be connected. I don't want to get sectioned again either, but we want to be we want that connection. And I did a lot of things that just basically buried myself, instead of going, no, this is me, and if you don't like it, you can jog on. You can just stop watching the video, and if you like it, brilliant. You know what I mean? So Who Called You Crazy? You're Having a Spiritual Awakening is out on the 9th of September. If you want to support me because you know me and you're not that bothered, because a lot of people, this is nothing new and you're already living your best life, right? Fine. But if you want to support me, that would be awesome, and you can sign up for to be on my advanced reader team and my launch team. So if you want, there's two variations of this. One, you might want to help me and just buy an ebook on the day, on the 9th of September, and if that's true, let me know. Pop an email to me at carolineMaryAndrews@hotmail.com, or Facebook me. I'm Caroline Mary. You'll find me there. You can friend me if you're not already a friend, and you can just let me know, I'd like to be let know on the 9th, and then you'll buy an ebook. That'd be amazing. But if you want to actually read it prior to the launch, you can join my advanced reader team. And if you do that, if you want to do that, just let me know. Email me at carolinemary@hotmail.com, or Facebook message me. You can pop a comment here in YouTube, it's fine as well, but you might not want to say it publicly, and I understand, that's fine. But what you'll do is you'll receive a PDF copy of the book. It's not the latest copy, okay, so the foreword would be missing and things like this, but it will be a good enough copy for you to read it. So on the launch day, then what we ask of you is that you'd buy the ebook and leave a review. And the reason we do that is because in Amazon, if you sell a certain amount of books on a certain day within like 24 hours of your first purchase, you might become a bestseller. And yes, it's great to be a bestseller, but the point is it helps the Amazon algorithms share you around the world, okay? And the whole reason I've written this book, yes, it's been a massive process for me, but from here on in, it's about helping other people. And if this book gives one insight that helps somebody, then my work is done. And that's obviously my wish. I want to get the book out. So if you want to support me in that way, by buying the book, you're helping me to be a bestseller and get more traction in the Amazon sales and recommendations and all of that stuff, okay? And if you want a book, you're so very welcome. I'd love for you to have a book. If you're not in the UK, I would recommend you getting one from Amazon, okay? And if you are in the UK, you're very welcome to have a signed author copy, so you can pre-order one of those from my website, openlotusLiving.com/who-called-you-crazy, okay? Bit of a complicated one, but there you go. Perhaps I'll change it to crazy, but you can pre-order that, so you can just pop your order in, and as soon as I get them in my hands, I will send them to you. Oh my God, it's literally, I think it's like 2.5 weeks I've got. Oh my God. If you've ever been in the position that I've been, then you will know. And if you haven't written a book and you're dying to write a book, please just get on and do it, mate. You will feel so much better. Literally, a few months ago, I realised I thought I'd been depressed for years, and I wasn't really depressed. I mean, you could call it that, but really I just needed to get this book finished, and I kept putting it off, and I was scared, and my God, have I gone through the houses. I have had to do a lot of inner work. I've used EFT, I've journaled, I've screamed, I've shouted, I've called in my spirit guides, because I have had to process the PTSD around being sectioned, which, by the way, and this is a topic for another video, really is like a witch hunt, okay? And to me, it's a mirror of the many lifetimes in which people like myself have got killed for being the wise woman or the alternative thing. I've seen loads of those like inner visions of me like stood on the stake, okay? So it's, if you're resisting doing something, don't be hard on yourself, be easy, okay? Be really gentle and compassionate, because there will be something in your psyche, and not just maybe from this life, that is saying no, don't do that, because something is bad is going to happen. Because guess what, guys, the Dark Ages were not called dark for no reason. They were fucking heinous. People did nasty shit to each other, and we are living in that let's say we're living in the shadow of that, okay? Popping your head above a parapet wasn't cool. You got it shot off, right? So do be kind to yourself, okay? Really be kind to yourself. If you're going through a spiritual awakening, if you want to comment, obviously comment. If you want to ask questions, if there's a subject that you'd love me to chat about on the Ascension TV alignment, pop a comment in the thing. If you don't agree with it, also that's fine, comment away. I'm not going to be offended. I don't expect to tick everyone's box, but I do feel like it's my time to share what I've got, my journey, and if it helps you, then so be it. And so that's a little bit about that. If you're interested in staying in touch, you can check me out on Facebook, Caroline Mary, and you can follow me, or you can friend request me. That's fine. Do send me a message. I do like it if people let me know why they're friend requesting me. I don't mind, but it's always nice to actually know why you want to friend request me. And also I'm on Instagram, Caroline Mary, with Open Lotus. And you can also sign up to my newsletter. At the moment, it's about once a month, but I probably will be up in the amount of that when I get going. Like everything in life, building momentum takes time to build your business systems, and so bear with me on that. But you can sign up there. All the links will be in the comments below. And again, reach out. This is not something I'm not just talking to you so you have to accept it and don't get an opinion. All right, I really want to hear feedback. I want to hear from you. see what's going on in your world. And if you want to be on Ascension TV online, there's also a page on my Facebook, and there's a link to a form so you can join in there as well. So I'm going to send you so much love. It's been amazing to chat with you today. I look forward to hearing from you and hearing your journey and what your feelings are, if you resonate, if you don't, what's going on for you. So I'm going to send you so much love. Bye for now, and I'll see you soon. Take care.